These tall raised beds, they're all the rage these days. But should you get one? Let's have some real talk. Hey folks, if we haven't met before, my name is Tara. I garden in the Bay Area, and for me, it is practically impossible to grow anything successfully in ground. You see these gorgeous redwood trees behind me? They're in my neighbor's property, and their roots reach out all across my garden and eat and drink anything that I put in my soil. My plants are always drying out and they're always looking yellow and lacking nutrition. So I have resorted to gardening in raised beds which have solid bases. And today we are going to be unboxing a 32-inch tall raised bed from Vego Garden. Lately, I've been investing a lot in raised beds like this, these tall raised beds or the elevated raised beds, because they're just so amazing on the back. And as I continue to grow into a cranky old lady, I find that this is just such a back saver. But it can also break the bank as far as the amount of soil that you have to put in it. I actually have been avoiding these raised beds for quite a while now. Even though I love the height, the amount of soil that you have to fill in these raised beds, for example, this one, which is 32 inches tall, which is quite tall, and it's about 8 feet long, 2 feet wide, it could take something like 28 to 30 bags of soil. That's a lot of soil to fill up in those raised beds and costs a lot of money. But Vego Garden has gotten a little trick up their sleeve which will actually cut our soil use in half, and I'm going to show you that as well. Now, the other way that you can also reduce your soil is by putting in logs and other things that will actually occupy quite a bit of volume. And I actually have a video which I'll put a link to somewhere over here where I show you what happens to these logs after they've been in the soil, like underneath in your raised beds for many years, 3-4 years or so. So check out that video. It's really interesting to see how the wood breaks down. But for now, let's actually get in here and get started on setting up this new raised bed, and I'll tell you all about the features and that new soil saving trick. Now, this new planter is going to be in that location where you see that old shelving, I think it's IKEA shelving, that I've used to make a planter. I kind of found it by the wayside and decided, this was like 4 years ago, I decided that everything I could plant things in, I would, and this looked like a perfect candidate. But as you can see, pressed wood, it's starting to break apart. And then even worse over here, something has probably been digging and getting into it. And yeah, it's time that this thing got replaced. It is literally falling apart. So this is where the new one is going to be. Now it's going to be longer than this. So it's going to be 8 feet long. This is about 6 feet long. So it'll come maybe a little bit further here. And also it's going to be 36 inches tall. This height is 16 inches. So this is going to be double of that. So it's going to be quite a bit taller. And then it's going to have that trellis on top, and I'm going to also get the greenhouse, which will be a part 2 video. When I get that, I will show you how I set up the greenhouse, but hopefully it's going to look much nicer here. And I'm going to have some lights, ripple lights along the sides, so that when people come into my house, they're not met with this eyesore as soon as they enter. All right, let's go ahead and lay it all out. I'm going to actually clean this up first and get it out of the way, and then we'll set up the new planter.
A few hours later.
Okay, all in a day's work, I have removed that entire planter, and it was quite a bit of work. And guess what, guys? I got quite a bit of soil out of it. And I noticed that I had a layer of tiles, the concrete tiles, underneath it. And then as I'm looking down here, I've got a plant shelf that I can pretty up a little bit, and this has got to go. Now this is the new eyesore, so I'm going to get rid of that. So I've roughly cleared out my space, and now let's put together the planter. So first things first, lay out all the parts and make sure that you've got all of them. And this thing is supposed to take like 50 minutes to set up, which is actually very reasonable. And the reason is because really there's not much to it, you guys. The biggest part is probably peeling off the plastic. It comes with these protective plastics on both sides. So it takes a while to peel them all off and do that, because that prevents the thing from getting scratched up when it is shipped. And then of course the other is there will be a million screws that you have to screw in, but this becomes a lot easier to do if you've got one of those power tool screwdrivers. Okay, let's put together that soil saving panel. But before we do that, I am a Vego Garden affiliate, you guys. So if you do choose to buy any Vego Garden products, I would sure appreciate it if you use my affiliate link. It's also in the description, and I've got a QR code for it as well. And if you use the code GREENLOVE10, you should get a $10 off your entire purchase. All right, let's put the platform together. Look at these panels. So these are kind of like, how you have in wine bottle kind of cases, you've got those divider things. That's kind of how they fit together, and they form a level on top or kind of halfway through this raised bed. So you only need half the soil. So for a 32-inch bed, I'm assuming it's going to be about 16 inches of soil, which is plenty for most of the annuals, particularly that we grow. And this is lightweight. I mean, like super lightweight. So it's kind of a really strong plastic, but it almost looks like cardboard. But yeah, it's going to be able to hold up all that soil, and I'm going to be able to also prevent critters from crawling in from underneath, because, they're going to crawl under, and then they're going to find like this big open space. Darn. And then also roots, redwood roots. They're everywhere, you guys, in my garden. And this is going to help prevent that from happening. First, let's set up the raised bed. Now, you may wonder, why Vego Garden and not some cheapo galvanized raised bed online? Well, first off, I really don't want something that will rust or leach heavy metals into my soil. These here are made from VZ 2.0 alu-zinc coated steel, which is stronger and more weather resistant than galvanized. Vego says that they'll last 20 plus years, which is great, because I plan to be gardening well into my cranky old lady years, just like I talked about earlier. Then there's the modular design. You don't just get one bed shape, you get options. For example, this one that I got is a 9-in-1, which means I can set up in 9 different configurations. I can make it oval and stretch it out long, or a more square shape, depending on my space. It comes in loads of colors too: sky blue, olive green, modern gray, pearl white, terracotta, sunlit oak. These are some stylish beds. The paint is non-toxic, and they have USDA certifications too. You won't get that with the cheapo galvanized beds. And even the hardware, the screws and nuts and bolts, are stainless steel, and they won't rust. And here's the kicker: with the soil saver level, you can put it on concrete and other hard surfaces without worrying about soil to ground contact. One more expected perk: pest control. With no open soil at the bottom, this tall raised bed is way less tempting, and rats and voles won't dig their way under it. Now, squirrels, they're another story, especially since I have this grapevine arbor right next to this spot, and I'm pretty sure those acrobats are already planning. But honestly, rats and voles have been my bigger problem, so this setup is a huge win. All right, all set up. Now, I will tell you that it actually needed 2 people to do it. If it was shorter than this, it can be done by 1 person, but unless you're like really tall, 6'5", something like that, it's very difficult to reach onto the other side and then screw from this side, especially the bottom screw. Very, very hard. So my husband came and he helped me, and I'll tell you, it went at like 5 times the speed. So definitely get someone to assist you with this. Now, you do have to put this little protective thing over it. The way I like to do this, now the instructions don't say this, but just having set up several like this, I start at one of the thin spots. So you see how there's this double layer over here? Don't start directly over here. Start at the thin layer, then kind of go all around. And it's kind of fun actually to push this in. And then when you reach the end here, you actually allow for a little bit of overlap. So you kind of snip it right here. I give about maybe an inch and a half, and get a stronger tool than my scissors to do it. But the advantage of doing it this way is that, I don't know whether you've seen other videos, but often as time goes by, there's a gap that develops over here because of heat and contraction with the weather. So it'll just kind of pull it with a screwdriver or something over it so that it joins nicely. There we go. And I did it. Now this will never result in a gap because there is an overlap. So this is kind of how it should look if you are not installing the soil saver level, which we're going to be setting up right now. But if you are installing the soil saver level, don't put these upper rods in, because you're going to have to put the soil saver in and then connect the rod again. Now the fun part, let's set up the soil saver level. The soil-saving floor is a grid-like insert that is designed for this raised bed, and it creates a false bottom, reducing the soil depth to 15 inches while maintaining a comfortable standing gardening height. The soil-saving floor is made from FDA-approved, food-safe polypropylene plastic, including 30% recycled material, and it is designed to last for 15 years. It reduces the amount of soil needed by over 50% while leaving plenty of room for plants to grow. Yes, with 15 inches of soil depth, your vegetables, flowers, herbs all have plenty of space for healthy root development. And because of the wide surface area of the bed, the feeder roots of these plants have plenty of room to grow horizontally as well. So my husband's first question was, I can't believe this can support the weight of the soil and the plants, especially since we had recently had this experience where the entire bottom of my Costco Cedarcraft planter fell out. It was not fun. But the answer is yes. It is engineered with an X-grid support pattern designed to work with Vego bracing rods for added stability and strength tested to handle the weight of the soil and mature plants. They've even strength tested it with clay soil. So long story short, my husband is an engineer, and after reading the manual, he was satisfied that it would hold up. So it was a lot of fun putting that platform together, and I am all done with setting up that raised bed. And now I'm going to be filling it with soil. I'm not going to put you through the hardship of watching me fill soil in this raised bed, but I will tell you that I am not buying any soil for it. I'm first off going to be using the soil that was already in the planters that I just replaced. I'm also going to be incorporating some clay soil from my garden. Did you know that plants need 17 essential macro and micronutrients in order to absolutely thrive? And in addition to the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, which are the macronutrients, they also need things like calcium and magnesium and manganese and boron and selenium and iron and all kinds of good stuff. So I have rich clay soil that contains all of the above. So I will be incorporating that into my raised beds. And then I am also going to be adding some wood chips that have been sitting around in my garden for about a year and are partially decomposing. I've added some alfalfa meal to it to really speed up the process. And then finally, I've gone and found a bunch of potting soil all around my garden, used potting soil. Going to be using that as well. And then adding some maybe steer manure or some slow release fertilizer. So I think I'm good. I think I've got enough soil to be able to fill up this planter. And then I'm going to come back and tell you all the things I'm going to be planting in it. It's not going to be your usual stuff because remember, I'm going to be getting a greenhouse cover for this in the latter half of the month, and I'm going to be setting that up. So I need things that actually could benefit from the greenhouse. So I'll tell you about that in just a moment. Let's fill up the soil first.
A few hours later.
All right, I'm done filling up the planter. It took a while, and it also did take a lot of soil. I mean, I can imagine that if I were to fill up the whole 32 inches with soil, it would have felt like I'm filling up the Grand Canyon. But this was like, I kept adding soil, and it was just not coming up to the top. But I got it done. And then the other thing that I really loved about it was those big cakey things of soil that I had got from the previous planter. When I pulled them apart, it was just so much easier to do it standing up, you guys, than bending over the planter and trying to mess around. So yes, this is a huge back saver. I am so looking forward to using it. And I'm so grateful that filling up soil in it was a one-time deal. So I'm going to be showing you the plants that I've chosen to put in this planter because remember, it's also going to be functioning as a greenhouse. So I had certain criteria in mind. But if you're still with me, I'm assuming that you like this video so far, and I would sure appreciate a big thumbs up. This will help not only the video spread better, but it'll also help YouTube select better videos for you. All right, let's take a look at the plants that I've selected. And then I'm going to show you some of the other updates on some of the elevated planters that I've set up in the past. It has been pretty phenomenal, so stay tuned for that. Let's take a look at these plants. All right, I have to admit I got a little over enthusiastic, but remember, these plants are not going to be in this planter forever. So the way that I am kind of keeping them here but not really making them permanent is I'm actually planting them in their pots. So say for example this one, this is a firecracker flower and it will not survive the winter in my climate even though I only get mild frosts. So I'm putting it in this greenhouse and I have buried the pot because when I pulled it out from the previous spot to put it in here, there were lots of roots that had already grown into the soil, and I'm assuming that they're going to continue to do that here, so I don't have to focus too much on this because they're eventually going to get nutrition from the bottom, from the soil at the bottom. I've also got a curry leaf plant. I've also got some papayas. Now look at all these plants. They grew through the season, but they're not going to be able to grow too well once the weather gets cold. So I'm going to be putting them in here, and I will separate them out in spring and plant them up in my garden. I've got some fig babies, and let's see what else. Oh yeah, I am also going to be using this planter to start some of my cuttings, which I'm going to overwinter. This gorgeous one is coleus. I've got a few more over here as well. So I overwinter my coleus every year. They will not survive outside, but they're very easy to overwinter. I've also got some dragon fruit babies that I started from seed. And then let's see, anything else? Yeah, this is a blue butterfly pea. I'm pretty sure it's going to die, but I'm going to try. I'm also going to be bringing some of my seedlings in their little 6-packs or 4-packs or whatever and burying them in here. So I've got some spots here and there. And once the weather starts getting a lot cooler, hopefully I'll have my greenhouse set up and all of these are going to survive. So stay tuned. I will be doing a part 2 video very soon when I get my frost cover, and then we will also clean this all up and set up the irrigation, and we should be good to go for the winter. Now let's go take a look at the progress on our other planters. So it's literally raining acorns all over me here in mid-September, but I wanted to show you this Easy Cube planter that I set up exactly 3 months ago, June 17th, 2025 to be exact. Today is September 20th. And look at it, you guys. It's got a 20-gallon tank at the bottom. So I water it roughly about a week or so. Actually, it's been more lately because the plants have gotten so big and the days are hot and they're drinking a lot of water. So these days it's probably twice a week, but gosh, this has grown enormous. Let me show you up close what all I've got growing in it. Yeah, so these plants, these are marigolds, and this plant over here is a pepper plant. This is a Peruvian pepper plant, and it was like literally 6 inches tall 3 months ago, and now it is all the way up. I don't even know whether you can see it right there. This plant is like 6 feet tall. And then of course the tomato plants, you know, I've got a couple of tomato plants, one here and one there, and this tomato plant also has grown all the way up. I know I'm only showing you cucumber vines, but believe me, there's tomatoes in here. You can see the tomato flowers right there over my roof. And yeah, I cannot even harvest the stuff that's growing up there. These melon and cucumber vines are just like trailing all over. I had to put some string there. And let me show you the melons that are coming in at the back. I don't know whether I can show you closely here. So I'm at the back of my planter, standing on a little footstool. There are many melons. Trust me, you have to trust me on this one. But there's at least about 7 or 8 melons on these 2 plants that I've got cascading all over the place. This thing is just ginormous, out of control. I've never really grown plants this large. One word of caution though, this pepper plant, because it is just growing and growing and growing, it is actually not producing any fruit. Now, plants need to actually be a little stressed out in order to fruit. My neighbor who gave me this plant, her plant is only probably about 2 feet tall, but it's got a lot of peppers. Mine is like, oh, I'm not dying anytime soon, so it just keeps growing and growing. So I will not be planting peppers anymore in this planter. It's just too much water for them and they don't get stressed at all. But I will be planting things like melons and cucumbers because they're absolutely thriving and they're producing a lot for me. Funny story. My husband was passing by this way the other day and he turned around and he looked at this planter and he's like, wait a minute, didn't we like just put in this planter and you have these tiny little plants in there? What happened? Yeah, this thing is growing really beautifully. Let me show you up close. Yeah, of course, I did not hesitate to tell him what an amazing gardener I was. But truly, guys, I mean, it's been a couple of months since I planted up this thing and it is growing just awesome. My zinnias have started to open up, my aurora zinnias. Aren't they amazing? And my roselle will be blooming any minute. I've got cucumbers coming up the back, and I've actually harvested quite a few cucumbers until the squirrels started discovering them and started taking them all out. So now I'm using these little clamshells, and the cucumbers are starting to form in them. I don't know whether you can see, but yeah, I tried using things like chicken wire. No, didn't work. So yeah, that is the only problem that I have. How do you keep the squirrels out of your planters? We built this enormous caged area, which is working out really, really well so far. I finally got my first zucchini of the season when everyone's harvesting their last. But yeah, squirrels are a big problem in my garden. And last but by no means least, my elevated movable planter. And this is like its third round for the season of plants that are growing in it. I've got my last round of beans. These are horticultural Taylor dwarf beans. And up here, guess what, you guys? I actually have a cantaloupe. Oh my goodness. Yep, really excited for this. I've also got a last tomato plant that is actually starting to flower. I hope you enjoyed the video, folks. Until next time, live green and love your greens.